Vulture, welcome back. This is part 3 of the Kybalion, and look how skinny this book is. Dense. We're starting chapter 8, the planes of correspondence. The second principle of this philosophy is correspondence. There is harmony and agreement and correspondence between the planes of manifestation, life, and being, because everything in the universe emanates from the same source. Therefore, the same laws or principles apply to all things as they manifest on their own plane, level of evolution. The universe can be divided into 3 great planes. There's the great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. And, low, higher, highest. These divisions are arbitrary. They're all ascending degrees of the same thing, the great scale of life. The lowest is undifferentiated matter, rocks. The highest is spirit. They shade into each other, kind of overlapping as you ascend. They are groups or degrees of life manifestation. The plane is not a place, it's not a dimension of space, it's a state or condition, a degree of dimension. Space dimensions are length, breadth, height, circumference. Planes are like dimensions of vibration, like the 4th dimension, the 5th dimension. They're dimensions of vibration. They are recognized by science. Science knows they exist. The Hermeticist's 3rd principle is everything is in motion. All things vibrate. Nothing rests. The degree of the 4th dimension are degrees and rates and directions and manners of vibration on a scale of vibration. And the degrees of the 4th dimension are planes. So the higher the degree of the rate of vibration, the higher the plane, is a simple way of putting it. The higher the manifestation of life on that plane. The plane is not a place, it's a state or a condition. But planes have qualities. You exist on a plane because you exist in a state of being. So planes are not actual divisions, but are arbitrary terms used to aid our thought and study of the universal activity of life. So, for example, the atom is the unit of force in the mind of man, but could just as easily be described as an archangel. It's all degrees on a scale, and they're fundamentally the same thing. The only difference is degree and rate of vibration. All creations of the all exist solely in the infinite mind of the all. And we can subdivide each of the 3 great planes into 7 subplanes, and they shade into each other. So this is sort of like a roadmap to spiritual evolution. It includes all that relates to physics, or material things, forces, and manifestations, and all forms of things that we would call energy or force. So this ties together the spiritual concepts with the laws of physics. Hermetic philosophy is not, it doesn't recognize matter as a thing in and of itself with a separate existence. It's a state of vibration. Matter is just a form of energy at a specific rate of vibration, and it's assigned to 3 of the 7 subplanes. So the great physical plane, this is the material world, and it exists as planes of matter, A, B, and C, planes of the ethereal substance, A, B, and C. In the plane of matter, this is easy, solids, liquids, gases. The plane of matter, the next one up, B, is more subtle matter, and we now recognize this in science, plasma. Radiant matter. Then there's the plane of matter that they call C, that's actually not even really known to science, but I would say that we're getting there. The plane of ethereal substances is the ether. And this pervades universal space. Now here we have this ancient philosophy that's telling us about what they're discovering in science now. I think that's fascinating. This pervades all universal space, is used as a medium of the transmission of waves of energy as communication. This is a substance through which light, heat, electricity, etc. move. It forms a link between matter and energy. There are 7 kinds of ethers. This is very complicated, very hierarchical. Then we have the plane of energy known to science. Heat, light, magnetism, electricity, attractions like gravity, cohesion, chemical affinity. And science knows that this exists, but it doesn't really have a name for this plane. It knows it's there, it just doesn't know what to say about it. Then there's the plane of energy B, which has 7 subplanes. These are called nature's finer forces, and they're used in mental phenomena and make them possible. This is where all the psychic stuff is going on. Then we have the plane of energy C, and it's organized enough to be like life, but it's not recognized by man. So, they talked about plasma being diffuse, so far apart in each part of it that we don't recognize the fact that it's part of a whole because it's so widely spread out. This is what they're talking about. Not recognized by man, only known to those on a spiritual plane. It's unthinkable to ordinary man and would consider them divine powers and thought to have the abilities of only gods. Then we're moving even farther out. Now we're talking about, you talk about raising your vibrations and moving to a higher level. These are the levels that we're trying to attend. The great mental plane, living things known to us and forms known only to occultists. So we've talked about this physical plane and rising up. Now we've got the mental plane rising up at the same time within each other. The plane of the mineral mind. So there's a mind to minerals, a mind to chemicals. They are souls in a sense. They're living beings of a very low degree of development, low degree of life and mind, but they're more than units of just separate energy. Occultists know, people don't, that the mineral kingdom has a soul and a mind and a life. Science is quickly moving to this understanding, but occultists know it as a fact. The plane of the elemental mind is invisible and not known to man. It's an intelligence, and it's developed between minerals and plants, and it plays a role in the drama of the universe. Then there's the plane of plant mind. Plants have a life, a mind, and a soul. The plane of the elemental mind B, these are different levels of animal-plant interaction. The plane of the animal mind, above plants. The plane of elemental minds, about the connection between animals and humans. So you can see we're kind of moving up, we would call it evolution. And there are 7 divisions to the plane of elemental minds, the mind between animals and plants. And this is so funny. There's 7 divisions, and says most people today are only at part 4, number 4. Only the most intelligent people are at number 5. And it's taken us millions of years to get to that. And it's going to take many more to rise above that. There are races before us that have gone much higher. We are number 5 to set foot upon the path. So there's been 5 other sets of humanity. Some very few of us have moved ahead into the 6th, which would be like Superman, and into the 7th, which would be like Overman. These 7 subdivisions of the great mental plane are like the black keys on the piano. They play a part. They act as links of the soul and connect the stages of development. These entities may not be visible to us, but they play a vital role. Then there's the great spiritual plane, which is difficult to explain and to describe to mere humans. Well, especially since we're only back here on part 4 and 5. Difficult to describe and explain. They have seven subdivisions, each with 7 subdivisions. These are beings with life, mind, and form as far above us as we are above a worm. Beings transcend us and we can't comprehend. They are clothed in pure energy. This includes angels, archangels, demigods. On lower levels, it includes masters and adepts. There are angels and higher beings that we would even call divine. They're so advanced. They take a great interest in the affairs of the universe, and they play an important part in its affairs. They are unseen divinities. They are angelic helpers. They influence evolution and cosmic progress. They intervene and assist. They superimpose their knowledge and power, all under the law of the all. Even the most advanced are merely creations of and in the mind of the all. They're subject to cosmic processes and universal laws. They are still mortal. They are the elder brethren of the race. Advanced souls who have foregone absorption by the all to help our upward journey on the path. They belong to the universe. They're subject to its conditions. They're mortal. They're a plane below the absolute spirit. They would need knowledge from previous incarnations and intense training for many years in this life to begin to understand them. What they know, they're too important, they're sacred, and even dangerous for general public to be disseminating. Spirits are a living power. They're an animated force. They're an inner essence, and they're the essence of life. Spiritual power can be used for good or evil. That's the principle of polarity. The knowledge of these planes has been occulted in esoteric and occult groups. Those who attain higher spiritual powers and misuse them have a terrible fate. I think we need to, don't be making those love charms or putting curses on people. The swing of the pendulum of rhythm will inevitably swing them back to the farthest extreme of material existence, and they will have to retrace their steps, spiritward, with the added burden of knowing how far they have fallen. The fallen angels, therefore, based on the truth. The striving for selfish power on a spiritual plane inevitably results in selfish souls losing perpetual balance, falling backward as far as it has previously risen. But even such a soul has opportunities to return and may make the return journey. You're not doomed. Oh, look at that. It opened immediately to the page. In conclusion, we would again remind you that according to the principle of correspondence, which embodies the truth, as above, so below, as below, so above, all of the 7 Hermetic principles are in full operation on all of the many planes, physical, mental, and spiritual. The principle of mental substance, of course, applies to all the planes, for all are held in the mind of the all. The principle of correspondence manifests in all, for there is a correspondence, harmony, and agreement between the several planes. The principle of vibration manifests on all planes. In fact, the very differences that go to make the planes arise from vibration, as we have explained. The principle of polarity manifests on each plane, the extremes of the poles being apparently opposite and contradictory. The principle of rhythm manifests on each plane the movement of the phenomena having its ebb and flow, rise and flow, incoming and outgoing. The principle of cause and effect manifests on each plane, every effect having its cause, every cause having its effect. The principle of gender manifests on each plane, the creative energy being always manifest and operating along the lines of its masculine and feminine aspects. Okay. Chapter 9, Vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves, everything vibrates. This is the 3rd Hermetic principle, the principle of vibration. Motion manifests in everything in the universe. Nothing is at rest. Even the Greeks knew this, the early Greeks. Then they lost this knowledge for centuries to all but the Hermeticists who occulted it. In the 19th century, physical science rediscovered it, and in the 20th century, finally, we agree. The only difference between everything is the degree of vibration. The only difference between us and a rock. The all vibrates so high that it seems at rest, like the wheel of a fan blade. The pole of vibration, the higher the spirit on one end, the lower the gross material on the other. Science shows that matter and energy vibrate. We have proof of this. Science even now is tending to occult knowledge that the mind is vibration. They're finally getting that. Science knows that all matter manifests vibration as cold to hot in some degree, and therefore all is in motion or vibrating. All particles of matter are in circular motion from atoms to the sun. We know that. The sun moves around a great central point. The planets revolve around the sun, and the planets rotate on their axes. Molecules are in constant circular motion. Electrons are in motion. All matter manifests vibration. And science knows that light, heat, magnetic, and electric energy all vibrate and interact with the ether. Science is not yet understanding cohesion, chemical affinity, and gravity, but speculate that they're manifestations of vibratory energy, which has been taught by the Hermeticists for eons. Ether is postulated by science, but it's known to the Hermeticists as a higher manifestation of vibratory level. It's the medium of transmission of vibratory energy from one level to another. It connects the link between matter and energy. It uses the example of a spinning top, the book, as it speeds up. Oh, okay. Couldn't read my handwriting. A spinning top, as it speeds up and makes a sound, and the sound increases until we can't hear it anymore. It gets higher. The higher it vibrates, the harder it is to hear. And also the object becomes a blur, and the color goes through the light spectrum, and we can't see all of this. And this is the way electricity and magnetism work. And these energies are emitted by the vibrating, fast-moving molecules of the universe. If enough vibration happens, the molecules will disintegrate, and then the object is composed of the ethereal substance, plasma. Hermeticists believe if it could increase the vibration, it would eventually move them up to higher planes and then re-enter the all, the absolute spirit, which is, basically what they're saying is you raise your vibration until you're as high as you can go. Hermetic teachings all manifest the all manifesting thought, emotion, and reason, will or desire, it's all accompanied by vibration. And they're thrown off, emitted, and affect the minds of others by induction. So we can actually affect the minds of others. This is the principle of telepathy, mental influence. Manipulating your vibration is how you do it. Every thought, emotion, mental state has its corresponding rate and mode of vibration, and by effort we could reproduce them. You can learn to apply the principles of vibration to mental phenomena and polarize your mind, control your moods, control the moods of others, or even the minds of others. It's all about vibrations. It requires the ability of mental transmutation, which is an art. Miracles and the power of masters are really just using the mind to change vibrations. He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power. Chapter 10, Polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles, two sides, two aspects, with many degrees between the extremes. There are two sides to everything. Every truth has half of a false. The Hermetic teachings, and I have a hard time with that. I'm not sure I understand that. Hermetic teachings are all different. The Hermetic teachings are that all the difference is between things. It's just a matter of degree. That, hot and cold. Where does cold end and hot begin? Pairs of opposites may be reconciled. Thesis, antithesis. They are identical in nature, different in degree. Universal reconciliation of opposites is affected by a recognition of these principles of polarity. Spirit and matter, that they have an arrow, with the two arrow points like this, spirit and matter. It's a matter of degree. The all and the many, a matter of degree. Infinite mind, finite mind, hot and cold. Higher is always warmer, lower is always colder, but where does cold end and hot begin? A matter of degree. East and west, if you look at the globe. Light and dark. The musical scale. One C on a piano is the same as another C on the piano. It's just a difference in vibration. Good and bad. Now, this is the part that I don't understand. That there's no absolute about good and bad. That they are the opposites and can just a matter of degree. So that's something I need to work on. If somebody understands that, I'd sure appreciate a better explanation. Less good is more good than bad. Okay. So there are no such thing as absolutes. In the middle, you have like and dislike, and they become indistinguishable. So saying love and hate, where do you draw the line? Courage and fear are an example. Hermeticists can transmute one mental state to another along the lines of polarity. But they have to be in the same class. You can't change love into east or west. You can't change cold into hate. But love and hate you can change, and courage and fear you can change. The same kind of things can be transmuted by degree, but they have to be the same thing. So somebody who's afraid can increase his vibration along the line of fear or courage. You can't change one class of things into another. But moving along a polarity by degree is how you do it, by changing vibrations. The two poles can be classified on the physical plane as positive or negative. Positive is always a higher vibration. Nature tends to the direction of the dominant activity of the positive pole. This can be used to affect the minds of another. You can change your mental state, and you can be a master of your mental state. You have to work on your vibe. Chapter 11, rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has tides. Everything rises and falls. The pendulum swings. It swings to the right, and the amount that it swings to the right is equal to the amount that it swings to the left. They have those stupid little toys in offices with the balls, and you let one ball click and the others move, and it's right there in front of us. Rhythm is compensation. In everything there is a measured motion, to and fro, flow and inflow, forward and backward, and ebb, high and low. This is closely linked to the principle of polarity. Rhythm is the manifestation between two poles of established polarity by the principle of polarity, and it rarely swings to the extremes. Rarely. Action, reaction, sinking, rising, creation, destruction of worlds, they all use these rules, like the rise and fall of nations and the mental states of man. I put a star by that because I think that's important to remember right now in our historical time period. There's an inevitability to what's going on according to the laws of the universe. Beginning with the all, there is ever the outpouring and the indrawing. Brahmins call it the outbreathing and inbreathing of Brahm. The universe is created at the extreme low point of materiality, and then it begins an upward swing. So these springing into being, reaching the height of power, beginning retrogression, becoming dead masses of matter, awaiting the impulse that starts the cycle again into activity, and a new cycle begins. This is suns do it, plants do it, seasons do it. It's pretty incredible. It's true for all things. An action goes to a reaction, birth goes to death, activity goes to inactivity, and then it all starts all over again. You're born, you grow, you die, you're reborn. This is true of movements. I think this is so interesting to remember. This is true of movements, philosophies, creeds, governments, nations. The pendulum always swings, night to day to night, summer to winter to spring. There's no absolute rest, no cessation of motion. All movement has a rhythm. And this can be applied to everything. The universal pendulum is ever in motion. Tides of life flow in and out. Science agrees. The Hermetic masters take it farther. This extends to mental activities. It accounts for moods. You're able to escape some of this. If you understand it, you can affect it. You know that there are planes of consciousness, lower and higher, and they can be used on these different planes to escape the swings of the pendulum on the unconscious plane. Call this the law of neutralization. You can raise the ego above the vibration of the unconscious plane of activity so that the negative swing is not manifested in the consciousness, and therefore you're not affected. I don't know how that works. They don't really go into detail here. I think you have to understand a whole lot more before that even makes sense. But what they say it is the equivalent of just rising above a thing and letting it pass beneath you. So that's kind of, like chill out, like that. You can polarize yourself to allow the mental pendulum to swing along the unconscious plane and refuse to allow the negative mental states to affect you. You can apply the laws of neutralization and rise above them. The master goes even higher. So we can see how little mastery over ourselves and our moods and feelings most people have. We're kind of drawn along by the tide. So you feel enthusiasm about something, and then you feel depressed. You feel courage, and then you feel fear. You feel hope, and then you feel hopeless. Feelings rise and fall like the tides, and understanding this inevitable pendulum can help us to gain mastery and avoid being carried away, or realize, oh, maybe I can rise above this and let it just kind of let the noise go on around me. The will is superior to the conscious manifestation of the principle. We can escape being carried along by the pendulum. In the principle of rhythm, we can see the law of compensation, counterbalance. Rhythm compensates. The measure of the swing to the right equals the measure of the swing to the left. Swing in one direction, swing in the other direction. They determine each other. One pole balances the other like a clock pendulum. What goes up must come down, and with the same force and direction. Force. Hermetists apply this to emotion. If you can create happiness, you can create sorrow. If you feel great sorrow, you can feel great happiness. If you feel pain, you can feel full of joy. In beings, some feel to a greater extent, and that would be humans. The capacity for pain and pleasure is balanced. We have an equal capacity. They say to enjoy pleasure will first swing, but it doesn't follow that you pay for pleasure. So, oh, I'm going to be happy, but then inevitably I'm going to be sad. That's not exactly how it works. According to the law of compensation, the pleasure is the rhythmic swing, the path, the pain previously experienced earlier or even in a previous life. So you can experience pleasure without paying the price, because the pleasure is actually the price for earlier pain. I like that. This puts a new light on pain. And because rhythm extends through your lives, plural. So you might end up having a very happy life because something awful happened in a previous life. I think that's what this is saying. A master can escape the pain by neutralization, by rising to a higher plane, in part, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can have one thing, and therefore you're going to lack another. Everything has pleasant and unpleasant sides. Your gains are always paid for by your losses, so I guess this is just the reality. The rich possess what the poor don't possess, and the poor possess what the rich don't possess, which is an important thing to remember. The millionaire may have the inclination toward feasting and the wealth wherewith to secure all the dainties and luxuries of the table. While he lacks the appetite to enjoy the same, he envies the appetite and digestion of the laborer, who lacks the wealth and inclinations of the millionaire, and who gets more pleasure from his plain food than the millionaire could obtain, even if his appetite were not jaded, nor his digestion ruined. For the wants, habits, and inclinations differ, and so it is through life. The law of compensation is ever in operation, striving to balance and counterbalance, and always succeeding in time, even though several lives may be required for the return swing of the pendulum of rhythm. Chapter 12, Causation, the sixth principle of the cause and effect. Every cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. Chance is not a law. It's not recognized. There's no escaping law. There are many planes of causation, so sometimes it's hard for us to see why we're experiencing something. There's a higher plane at play. Nothing happens without a cause. Chance is just cause not recognized. Cause and effect were known from a very early time, and now they're finally recognized by science. There is no such thing as chance. That would be outside the law. It can't happen. It would be out of the orderly trend of the universe, and there is no outside of the all. The all is the law, and there's nothing outside the law. It would render all natural laws ineffective and plunge the universe into chaos. Chance is the obscure cause not recognized. Chance from the Latin comes from the word cadere, to fall. Like the fall of the dice. But the fall of the dice depends on numerous variables. It's not chance. It's like tossing a coin, and we had to do this stupid experiment in statistics class. Throw a penny into the air and count how many times it landed heads or tails. So you toss a coin, it'll fall heads and tails equally. And this is operating under the law of averages, the law of cause and effect. And it never happens. Nothing ever happens without a cause. You don't create something. There's a cause. There are events that happen because of preceding events. There is a relationship, a continuity between everything that goes before and follows after. Okay, I wrote this down and I don't remember the story, so let me see if I can just read it out loud and it'll come back to me. The rock hits the roof. The rain softens the earth. Oh, okay. A rock hits your roof, and you're like, God, how did that happen? That was weird. Fate, chance. No, it rained, and it softened the earth, and it loosened the rock, and gravity pulled it, and then it hit your roof. It's like counting ancestors. You have a mother and father, that's 2, and you have 4 grandparents and 8 great-grandparents, and pretty soon you realize that the number of causes that could happen in any event are enormous. If you look just as an example at a family tree, it rapidly grows. Free will is bound by necessity, polarity, and the opposing poles of truth. Not sure I knew what that meant. The further the creation is from the center, the more it is bound. The nearer the center it reaches, the nearer free it is. Most people are slaves of their heredity and environment, and they manifest very little freedom. I'm not sure I understand this part. The further the creation is from the center, the more it is bound. The nearer the creation is, it reaches the center, the more free it is. I understand most people are slaves of heredity and environment and manifest little freedom. They're swayed by opinion, custom, thought, emotions, moods, and they don't manifest mastery over their lives. They say, I do what I want, okay, but what makes them want what they want? The master can change wants to the other end of the mental pole. A master is able to will his will instead of his will controlling him. The majority of people are carried along like a falling stone by outside influences without an exercise of free will. The masters are movers, not pawns. They know the rules of the game and they rise above the material plane. Chapter 13, gender. This is the 7th principle. Everything has a masculine and a feminine aspect. Gender manifests on all planes. It's not about sex. It's about creation, generation. Comes from the Latin genus, meaning birth, to beget or to produce. Gender is about creating, which science really hasn't gotten grips on yet. They see it in ions and electrons, which form atoms, that are building blocks. Science agrees that atoms are made out of electrons revolving and vibrating, but science says negative electrons cluster around the positive protons. Now I found this really, really interesting. That's kind of that's what I was taught. But Hermeticists don't believe that. They believe that the positive charge is masculine and the negative charge is feminine. We make erroneous associations. We say negative is bad and positive is good. The cathode, the negative pole, is the pole by which generation happens and energy is manifested. The cathode in Greek comes from the word descent, the path of generation. From the cathode comes electrons, and it's the mother of all strange phenomena. The cathode, the negative pole, is the mother of all phenomena. It's the descent of generation, the principle of the electric phenomena. So instead of saying the negative end, say the feminine end. And negative, cathode, feminine. Electrons are feminine. Science says that they're negative energy, and these philosophers say it's really positive energy because it's what generates it, what creates. All electrons detach and actively seek a masculine union to create new matter. So if you think of electrons ionizing, detaching from atoms, creating a negative charge, taking a negative charge, they're looking to join together, provide an opportunity for creation of 2 atoms getting together. Electrons are responsible for that. So the feminine particles vibrate and circle the masculine particles. I'm not touching that. This creates the birth of the new atom. the union of the masculine and feminine. It's just words, it's semantics, but it's to try to help us to understand the gender concept. From the detachment of feminine and its union with the masculine comes light, heat, electricity, magnetism, etc. It's all the principle of gender on the plane of energy. The masculine directs a certain inherent energy toward the feminine to start the activity of creating. The feminine does the creative work, masculine initiates the creative work. They need each other. They both are in everything. Some science now acknowledges this in crystals. And they said science is now getting on the right path. The electrical theory of the universe is the principle of gender. And that is Dr. Donald Scott, I want to say. Oh, I hope I got that right. Does some lectures on it on YouTube. And they're really good. Really, really interesting. The electric universe. If you go to YouTube and type in the electric universe, you'll find it. Chapter 14, mental gender, the idea of a dual mind, the conscious and the subconscious. This was also known by the ancients. This is psychology. It was known in ancient times as the principle of gender on the mental plane. The masculine principle mind is the objective mind, conscious, voluntary, active. The feminine principle of mind is the subjective mind, involuntary, passive, subconscious, intuitive. And the Hermetic teaching is not 100% in agreement with modern thought on this. Your consciousness tells you of the existence of the self, I am. And this is divided into aspects that work together, the I and the me. This is your consciousness. The me is your likes and dislikes and habits and characteristics and personality. These change, die, grow, fade, and some see the me as their consciousness of their bodies, even including clothes. The clothes make the man, this external, what you see, that's me. They can't imagine themselves independent of their bodies. Even if a man is elevated in his consciousness, he still thinks of himself as part of his body. It's very hard for us. We can't imagine a self independent of the physical. We may evolve to connect the me with the mental state and feelings, and the book equates feelings and the mental state as existing inside you. We don't know that there are things that we produce ourselves. We can eventually set all of this aside by an effort of will, be able to create the opposite state of mind, and the same me exists. So I think, what they're trying to say is that it's difficult for most of us to think of ourselves as something other than what you see is what you get. And to be able to set all of that stuff aside and dig deeper is the goal. So after the laying aside process, you'll be in conscious possession of your real self. Me is something mental. Me, the word me, is something mental. Mental states, emotions. The ancients called this the mental womb, and they said that it could generate mental offspring, ideas and emotions. It has enormous powers of creative energy. Man perceives that it receives some form of energy from its I in order to be able to create. And this consciousness has enormous capacity to do mental work and creative ability. But man finds that he has a part of a mental something that wills the me and along creative lines and can stand aside and witness mental creation and he calls it his I. So this is the ability of really artistic people to tap into that creative them, that part of them that exists sort of parallel to their, to the everyday stuff. The I can witness the process of creation of the me, the real me. The I is masculine, the aspect of being, and it spurs on your will and witnesses creating. The me is feminine, the aspect of becoming, and it acts creatively. Everybody's got both of these sides. That's what they mean when they say that gender, the willing it into being and the creating it itself. The feminine principle receives impressions that are the tendency of the masculine. They work in tandem. The feminine generates new thoughts, including works of the imagination, and the masculine is more of the will. A person who can give continuous attention and thought to a subject is actively employing both mental principles. If you could really stick with the project, think of it, think of it, think of it, do it, do it, do it, you're putting both things together. You can meet people that don't use their masculine much. They are content with ideas that are given to them from other people. And telepathy is the vibratory energy of the masculine projected toward the feminine of another. Interesting, huh? The other takes the seed, the thought, and lets it develop. So that's how hypnosis works. Normally, masculine and feminine in a person's mind coordinate and act harmoniously, but in most people, the masculine is too lazy to act, and the willpower is too slight, and the person is therefore ruled by the minds and the wills of others who do their thinking for them. So they're, as opposed to what they seem to think, that they're real macho and they're following order. That's laziness. Few have original thoughts. Most people are shadows of others' stronger wills. Because most people live in the me consciousness and don't realize they have an I, they are polarized in the feminine principle of mind. The masculine principle, the will, is inactive and not used. Strong people use their own wills and dominate their own minds, and others too. Therefore, people often act like sheep. An actor who can make the audience laugh and cry is using his masculine principle. He's generating, he's creating emotion in people. So, to the orator, the preacher, the writer, they're influencing other people, manifesting of mental gender along vibratory lines. So personal magnetism, that's what that is, and so is hypnosis. In psychic ability, suggestion, transferring an idea to another person's mind and getting the other to act, the suggestion depends on mental gender and vibration. And remember, it's through the ether. The psychic person uses the masculine principle through vibratory energy to stimulate the feminine to create suggestion. Now we're talking about telepathically affecting other people. This is not all forms of psychic ability. So now we have a couple of hermetic axioms. How are we doing for time here? Doing well. The possession of knowledge, unless accompanied by a manifestation and expression in action, is like the hoarding of precious metals, a vain and foolish thing. Knowledge, like wealth, is intended for use. The law of use is universal, and he who violates it suffers by reason of his conflict with natural forces. The teachings were never meant to be hidden and stored away. They should obey the law of the use of knowledge without use and expression of knowledge. Knowledge is a useless and vain thing. Beware of mental miserliness. Express in action that which you have learned. Do what you know to be the right thing to do. To change your mood or your mental state, to change your vibration. This takes an effort of will by deliberately fixing your attention on more desirous states. That's called meditation. You take your will. I don't know, let me think of a thing. I don't know, I can't think of a goal, but you have a goal in mind. So you make up your mind that that's your goal, and then you give it attention, you meditate on it, and then your vibration will change. You cultivate the art of attention by means of will, and you solve the secret of your mood or your mental state. To change your mental vibration, concentrate on the opposite pole. This is used in psychology all the time. If you have a fear, cultivate courage. And I came up with this one. Whistle a happy tune. That song from The King and I. Whenever I am afraid, I hold my head erect and whistle a happy tune, and no one will suspect I'm afraid. I sing that every day because my bird loves it. The example they use is if you're in a dark room, open the shutters. Seems pretty basic. Master polarization and master mental alchemy. We have higher planes of consciousness, and when the pendulum swings too far and we're moody or low, focus on overcoming the rhythm by the law of neutralization in a higher plane to escape this pendulum. Rise above it. Rhythm is consciousness. As we've explained, there's a higher plane of consciousness as well as the ordinary lower plane. And the master, by rising mentally to the higher plane, causes the swing of the mental pendulum to manifest on the lower plane, and he, dwelling on his higher plane, escapes the consciousness of the swing backwards. This is effected by polarizing on the higher self and thus raising the mental vibrations of the ego above those of the ordinary plane of consciousness. It's akin to rising above a thing and allowing it to pass beneath you. Say it all the time. Rise above it. Don't engage in that argument. Rise above it. The advanced Hermeticist polarizes himself at the positive pole of his being, the I am. The I am pole, rather than the pole of personality. And I'm better than this. I'm not the reactionary person who's going to spew vindictive. By refusing and denying the operation of rhythm, invective, not vindictive, invective. By refusing, the pole of personality, by refusing and denying the operation of rhythm, raises himself above its plane of consciousness, and standing firm in his statement of being, allows the pendulum to swing back on the lower plane without changing his polarity. This is accomplished by all individuals who have attained any degree of self-mastery, whether they understand the law or not. Self-control. Such persons simply refuse to allow themselves to be swung back by the pendulum of mood and emotion, and by steadfastly affirming the superiority, they remain polarized on the positive pole. The master, of course, attains a far greater degree of proficiency because he understands the law which he is overcoming by a higher law, and by the use of his will, he attains a degree of poise and mental steadfastness almost impossible of belief on the part of those who allow themselves to be swung backwards and forwards by the mental pendulum of moods and feelings. Overcoming one law by counterbalancing it with another. Also, to escape cause and effect, you can rise above it and not be a pawn in life's chessboard. And finally, true hermetic transmutation is a mental art. In the above axiom, the Hermeticists teach that the great work of influencing one's environment is accomplished by mental power. The universe being wholly mental, it follows that it may be ruled only by mentality. And in this truth is to be found an explanation of all the phenomena and manifestations of the various mental powers which are attracting so much attention and study in these earlier years of the 20th century. Back of and under the teachings of the various cults and schools remains ever constant the principle of the mental substance of the universe. If the universe be mental in its substantial nature, then it follows the mental transmutation must change the conditions and phenomena of the universe. If the universe is mental, then mind must be the highest power affecting its phenomena. If this is understood, then all the so-called miracles and wonder workings are seen plainly for what they are. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Now, that's the end of this book. And this book is for sure the hard one to understand on this topic. It's the really intellectual version of this whole topic. So I'm going to do the laws of the universe in the next video. And I've got the laws of the universe, and I have some stuff from the internet. And don't think I'll do those today. I think I'll do those next week. I think we need time to digest this. And please be sure and send me your questions. And I'm sure that you have 8 gazillion questions, because I know I do. I think this was hard, but I think it's important. It's valuable. I felt it was time to put it out there. Not that it's not out there. I felt it was time for me to share what I've been reading. I hope you enjoyed it. It's dry. I mean, I'm fully aware of that. But not everything worthwhile is easy. So thank you very much for watching. Send me your questions in the comments. Have a great rest of the day. Slanka foil, slancha.